Guys, I'm really excited for this interview. I've been waiting for a long time to do this. Now that there's a new bylaw that came out in the city of Toronto, if you don't know, you can do 6 stories, up to 60 units on major streets in the city of Toronto and a small apartment building. Of course, there's a lot of considerations with that, and we want to talk about the financial feasibility. We have a guest today. He's an architect. He is famous for actually allowing or pushing forth for garden suites and lane suites in the city of Toronto. So he has a world of experience, and it's good to pick his brain a little bit about this. So stay tuned, and you really enjoy it. And by the way, I'm really sorry if you're watching this on video. It was bad audio quality. We did it through Zoom. That was not a good idea. I don't think I'll do that again. But yeah, enjoy. Look, I get it. The Toronto real estate market is confusing. Whether you're a new or experienced investor or just looking for a home to raise your family in, join us at Broadview Table Talks as we sit around the table with my friends and talk about the real estate and the ever-changing market in Toronto. All right, and we're on. Okay, Craig, thanks for joining me today. Craig Race, he's the principal architect, I guess, at Lanescape and Craig Race Architecture. You want to tell everybody about yourself?
Well, that's me. Yeah, we started Lanescape first as an advocacy group. So we helped the city create the bylaws for laneway housing here in Toronto. But my whole career, I've been focused on disrupting neighborhoods and finding ways to add units to houses and fit apartment buildings into places where there are otherwise just single family homes. So my whole life, I've been focused on finding the missing middle.
Oh, great. Thanks for doing that. That's been great for our streets here in Toronto. So I've seen some of your projects that you've done with the laneway housing, and it's beautiful. It's amazing. That one in Scarborough with multi-generational families living there. You know, the young couple that just had a baby and they built a house in the back on the parents' lot in Scarborough. That was beautiful.
That's been the best part about laneway suites and garden suites is the multi-generational aspect of it all. You know, people are able to give their kids that kind of jumping off point where they can put them in a house without having to buy another house. And likewise, if a parent is selling their house, they can still have their own property, but live with their kids. So it's been pretty exciting. Not to mention, there's always just the good old fashioned put a rental unit on the market scenario.
Right. Yeah, there's definitely scenarios for that for sure. But for that one specific scenario, you want to talk about the economics of that or like an ideal? It's cheaper than buying your own house, basically, right?
Yeah, way cheaper. I mean, the best comparison is, do I want to build a laneway house or do I want to buy a condo? You know, laneway houses are $400 a square foot and up, depending on a lot of things.
To build.
And a condo is like $1,000 a square foot and up. Like, obviously, they're different things. You can't sell a laneway suite separately. But just in terms of spending money on a house for someone who you're related to or yourself, you know, it's way cheaper to get a much more civilized, ground-oriented housing unit.
Yeah, for sure. And especially if you have, you know, if it's parents that own the house and you have a family and you have built-in daycare, babysitting, right? So it's good to be close to your family for sure if you're lucky enough to have that. So what kind of requirements do you need for that type of house? Or do you want to talk about some economics, like, you know, how many square foot you got there? Because that was a beautiful 4-bedroom house and you still maintain parking.
Yeah, the one you saw, I mean, if you have a good sized backyard, you know, as of right, laneway suites can be 1,700 square feet. You can put a basement under it to make it, you know, 2,400 square feet. So that's easily a 4 to 6 bedroom house if you have a lot that's at least, you know, 8 meters wide with a deep backyard. But even on small properties, we're able to do 1-bedroom units, 2-bedroom units with or without a garage, with or without surface parking. So depending on where you are and your use case, there's almost a solution within the bylaws for any circumstance.
Sorry, 8 meters is how many feet? I'm kind of not architect.
It's about 25, more like 27 feet.
Okay, that's cool. And we were talking about some prefab stuff as well too, right? And the advantages, disadvantages of that in building laneway suites.
Yeah, we've been looking at prefab a lot. Prefab makes sense if you're doing a lot of the same thing, if you have really good site access, or you want exceptional quality, like an exceptional building envelope. At the end of the day, we just find stick building on site with competent trades is substantially more affordable than doing any kind of free prefab solution right now. And it might, you know, prefab might save you a month at most from your construction timeline, but it's not enough to really skew the economics in a way that makes it worth the added cost. I'm hoping that will change though.
So I know some of your packages that you offer, you have the pre-built, pre-designed laneway suites. How does that work? Because isn't every lot a little bit different?
It is, but that's why we have a grid of designs. So we have, over 20 designs in 3 foot width increments and 6 foot depth increments that will fit on almost any size lot. And we can stretch them to fit to the inch. But really, when we were looking at prefab, we saw that the cost to time saving does not make sense. And we realized where we can save the most time is in the approvals process. So all of our pre-designed units are already engineered. Like we literally have permit sets sitting on our server. If you hire me today and we have our design selections meeting tomorrow, so it's fully personalized, we can apply for the permit on the second day we've been retained theoretically. So our goal is to get permits in a 60-day window after you've hired us. And that means, we could build this summer if we wanted to.
That's huge. So from start to finish, that would probably what take 6 months, 8 months?
Yeah, a typical design timeline for us with a custom design where we're just getting your survey and kind of trying different options with you. That's normally a 6 month design and approvals timeline. But with our pre-designs, 2 months, just put a shovel in the ground.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
It's definitely a bit of a trade-off. A lot of our custom home clients, like people who aren't developers, surprisingly want the ability to skew things inches here and there, move a bathroom downstairs, stuff that, really allows you to personalize to a high degree. In my mind, though, going with a pre-design that may not be exactly what you've envisioned, but is already optimized to be a good housing unit is well worth the time saving.
For sure.
We've also optimized them for construction as well. So we know that it's like the most efficient lumber package you can get for a house like this. And there's no weird construction details. Like they're meant to be built affordably and effectively with little complexity.
Do you guys manage construction as well too?
Yes. So Lanescape is an architecture firm and a construction management firm. So we have employees on both sides that design and build all of our projects.
It's amazing. Okay, so there's this new major street thing that just came out a couple weeks ago, or a month ago, maybe. What can you tell us about that?
Essentially, the city, in an effort to find the missing middle, has been undergoing quite a lot of changes in improving the zoning bylaws to allow for multi-unit houses and with major streets, small apartment buildings. They've essentially created an as-of-right bylaw that allows us to go up to 6 stories and up to 60 units on any of the major streets, which major streets are identified in the official plan. They're not your typical interior residential lots, but they are properties that are R-zoned. So a few years ago, only zoned for a single family home that now, if they're on a street like Jones Avenue or something that's a thoroughfare, but not as big as an avenue, now has entitlements for a 6 story apartment building.
So it has to be a residential, not CR, not commercial residential?
That's right. This is affecting the R zones, which is something planners call the yellow belt. Like on our zoning map, it's all the yellow colored properties. So we're trying to make better use of those properties where, like I said previously, they were only a single family home. Now we have new ways to make them multi-unit.
So yeah, you wouldn't be able to squeeze a 60-unit apartment building in a small little 15-foot lot, right? Like semi-detached lot or anything. So what are the constrictions? Like what are the restrictions and constraints that you have to build this, right?
Well, the good news is that the zoning bylaws got out of the way. So there is an as of right build form that we can follow now that makes life very easy from a zoning perspective. There are still a whole bunch of other approvals and programmatic restrictions we have to follow. Like, for example, if you're 4 stories or more, you need to have a sprinkler system according to the Ontario Building Code. You will likely have 7 units or more, which means you need barrier-free units, probably an elevator. If you have common hallways, you need 2 exit stairs still. Hopefully that'll change. If you're 10 units or more, you're still going through site plan and Toronto Green Standard. So as the buildings get much bigger than a multiplex, you do still have a fairly long and intense approvals process, but at least no neighbors can come out and fight you on it anymore. It's more prescriptive.
What about development charges? You got to pay that as well?
You do. So the multiplex bylaw that passed recently exempted fourplexes from needing to pay development charges. But once you're 5 units or more in a multiplex or an apartment building, you have to pay DCs. Now, the Toronto Green Standard does have some development charge relief depending on what tier you hit, but there's no relief from a typical building.
Rental replacement as well too, or no?
That's right. Yes. Now, the good news about major streets is you're usually just replacing single family homes with an apartment building. So you rarely have to deal with rental replacement.
Okay. So if somebody were to want to get invested in this and not invest in a typical, single family or condo or whatever, Like what kind of financials are we looking at to get in something like this? You buy a storefront for 1.5 million, let's say, or a house, single family house on a major street, and then what?
Well, if you're going for a 6-story building, really you can't do it with one lot. You need to assemble probably two, maybe three or four. We find that 50 feet of frontage is usually the bare minimum you want if you're going 4 stories or taller, just because that's the size we need to make two exit stairs and an elevator work.
And how
Not
deep
to
works better?
mention, yeah, not to mention the bike parking and the garbage bin storage that we need as soon as we're in site plan and TGS.
And how deep would you
Um,
need, or doesn't it matter?
a typical lot, 120 feet, the deeper the better. We can do it in 90 feet if we really had to. But any normal lot depth is usually suitable.
And what else? I guess you can do all timber, right? You don't need concrete for 6 stories.
That's right.
But would you
Yes.
maximize? Would you actually go? I mean, I guess, like you said, depends on if you want sprinklers and if the financials make sense to do sprinklers and elevators and all that.
Well, this is the whole thing with Toronto right now. Major Streets was excellent. It's a very good thing that it passed, but we do still have a gap between a 4-unit multiplex and the 60-unit apartment building that Major Streets allowed. So I find unless you've assembled those 3 or 4 lots and you can really go for the number of units that justifies the DCs and site plan requirements, you want to just keep the lots separate and go with a whole bunch of multiplexes with a laneway suite or garden suite behind them because those are exempt from development charges. You don't need to go through site plan control. You don't even need to go through committee of adjustment for those anymore. So we can get permits for those quickly. Like you can be acquiring a property and fully stable in under 18 months with that model. So just the speed and the development charge exemptions makes it very attractive. Otherwise, you want to assemble, 50 feet plus of frontage and go for like 30 units plus of building density.
So it sounds like not a lot of people are going to be taking up this new rule or anything.
I don't know. I mean, if you do happen to get 4 properties or like two really wide ones or things like that, there are circumstances where it's going to make a lot of sense.
Hmm.
Not to mention that 4-unit multiplex I used to only be able to do on a major street. Now I can make that 6 units and I can put rooftop terraces on it. And there are things we can do to just squeeze a little bit of extra juice out of the orange.
Right, right. But then the development charge is kind of like that hurts too, right? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, the good
talking about like
news is
50, 60, $80,000, depending on what's the unit size you have, how many
when
bedrooms you
you're
have.
only going for, like a sixplex, you can get a fourplex approved first and start building it and then phase in units 5 and 6 later. Like there are ways to reduce the development charge exposure on a project. You just have to be a little more strategic. And it only works at a small building, not at a 6-story mid-rise.
Right, right, right. Okay, so it sounds like the formula really is the fourplexes, really, with a garden suite. Let's talk a little bit about that, though. I mean, so if you buy a lot in Toronto, let's just say in the Yellow Belt, what are we looking at in terms of? I guess you have the prepackaged stuff. So would you do the fourplex first and then the garden suite afterwards, or would you do other way around?
Yes, essentially you do it all at once. There's an approvals issue at City Hall that we're ironing out right now, where the laneway suite or the garden suite has to lag behind the multiplex, but that's going to be sorted out. So anyone starting a project right now can reliably assume they're building a fourplex plus a laneway suite or garden suite on a property. And suddenly, as of last summer, there's been an alignment of the stars where we don't need to go to committee of adjustment for that. You're not paying any development charges on any of those units. And the CMHC has the MLI Select financing program that you comply with because you have 5 units on a lot. So all of a sudden, it's fast, it's cheap, and you actually have a way to get your money out once it's stable.
Right, right, right. Well, the CMHC MLI Select also depends on affordability with, energy efficiency and all that, right? So it's not guaranteed that you're going to get it, right? It doesn't really fully make sense. Yeah, if the numbers don't make sense, right? You got to go through 100 points or whatever. And I think they just changed the rules as of this Wednesday.
Yeah, that's right.
Energy
But
efficiency.
really, the difference between an MLI Select compliant multiplex and a non-compliant one is almost nothing. Like the Ontario Building Code envelope requirements essentially meet MLI Select. Like if you're just doing a good quality modern wall assembly, you're going to meet the energy requirements and the greenhouse gas emissions. The big one is that you do need either an affordable unit or a barrier-free unit in the building, and that's also pretty easy to meet. We can go to committee of adjustment for an additional unit and make a small bachelor unit, an affordable unit. We can just put a ramp in the backyard so one of the units is accessible. There are a lot of ways to crack the code on that don't really require very much.
Okay, so the formula is to do that. So you get one lot, call it 1.5 million, build a $1,000 lane suite in the back, and some renovation costs for the make it to 4 units, and you're golden, right?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of our clients have acquisition thresholds sub 1.5 million. I think most people are trying to get to a million, less if you can, but in a good neighborhood, 1, 2 kind of thing. You should be assuming you're building new construction for everything. Like the number of houses you can buy that you can just do an internal conversion to a fourplex are fairly minimal, unless you're in Scarborough or somewhere where lots are bigger and houses are bigger. So your land cost is probably lower than you just mentioned, and your construction cost is probably higher. But again, MLI Select should allow it all to make sense.
Yeah, and for those of you who don't know, MLI Select just gives you favorable rates with favorable amortizations and terms, which, if mortgage rates right now are at the 7s or 6s, even with MLI Select, you could be in the 4s and 5s, plus a 40-year or 50-year amortization, depending on what you qualify for. So that's great. Cool. It sounds like a very complex issue and complex thing to navigate, and that's why you need somebody like Craig on your side.
Well, it's actually easy if you have a competent consultant working with you. Like that's kind of the thing that's blowing my mind right now is like my whole career, I just assumed I was going to committee of adjustment and I was fighting neighbors and I was fighting planning staff and other people inside City Hall on how to get these things approved. And now, like, we have certainty. Like, people will send me a lot and I can put it into my assessment calculator and tell them immediately with 100% certainty what size the multiplex can be, how many units they can get, what bedroom and bathroom mix they can get. Same with the laneway suite or the garden suite at the back. Like before you've even stepped foot on a property, I can tell you exactly what you can do and how long it's going to take. And you can reliably build a pro forma around this to actually have something where you don't need to go for extra units and pray that the committee looks favorably on you. Like it's a reliable approach to development.
I hope somebody solves the problem of financing, though. I guess that's the other issue.
You think that's still a problem, even with the CMHC?
Well, I mean, first of all, you have to come with the cash ahead of time, right? Like, unless you're talking about rental construction financing or whatever they have for there, you still have to come up with the cash to do the development and the construction. Maybe you get a line of credit on the house that's already been paid off, or I don't know, you maybe finance it from somewhere else.
Well, doesn't MLS Select allow you to finance a construction? It's not just takeout?
I think it's only takeout. I don't know. Maybe I should look into it a little bit more.
Maybe we both should.
No, I think, well, I know CMHC has a rental construction financing initiative, I think they call it. No, I think they've renamed it to something else now. But I don't think MLS Select is for construction. I think it's for the takeout only, but I could be wrong.
Well, I have to admit, I am but a lowly architect. I can design to the requirements, but I definitely, my clients that thrive are the ones that can competently navigate financing programs and figure out those kinds of things you're mentioning.
So your clients, when you're not involved in the financing part of it, right? Like you don't ask them where they get the money from and all that.
No, I just, as long as they pay my invoices every month, I don't need to ask any questions. But, I do need to give them the proof that we are going to meet the energy and greenhouse gas reduction requirements, which we have to coordinate energy modeling for. Like all those requirements of MLS Select are critical to the project's success. So that's where our competency lies, is just making sure the paper is going to work for the application.
Well, this is a game changer, I think, this thing in Toronto, and I don't know why more people aren't doing it. So even myself, I should be doing more of this stuff.
I think, find a lot and let's give it a try, Ken.
All right. Sounds good, Craig. Thanks for your time. By the way, how do people reach out to you if they want to get more information?
Go to craigrace.com. I'm easy to Google, and feel free to reach out to us through our website. Also follow us on social media. If you have a property where you're thinking about doing a multiplex or a laneway suite or garden suite or both, just send us the address to info@craigrace.com and we can send you a property assessment free of charge. We try to turn them around in one day.
Cool. Awesome. That's RACE, right? Craig Race. Thank you so much. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, thanks, Ken.
Thanks for sticking out to the very end. I hope you got some value out of this. Do me a favor, please press like and subscribe. But more than anything, leave me some feedback so we know what to produce for you going forward. Thanks again.